Hello and welcome to Alpha Militaria TV. Thanks very much for tuning in once again. My name is Richard Saunders. Now, as I always do, I'd like to start by thanking all of our regular subscribers for subscribing and invite anyone who's perhaps come across us for the first time to subscribe as well. And of course, if you like what you see, to give us a like as well. Now, down below you'll find some links. There's a link to our website, alphamilitaria.com, where you'll find a whole bunch of articles, features and reviews on airgunning topics. You'll also find a link to our store on there, where we sell some scopes and some other airgunning accessories. And also you'll find a link to our Discord channel, where there's lots of good airgun chat going on, and finally to some Amazon pages for some products that I use on a regular basis. Now then, for our review today, we're continuing a theme of affordable springers. Now, sales of affordable air rifles, in particular springers, really took off during the lockdown, as I think a lot of people kind of reconnected with the sport that they perhaps enjoyed many years ago, and all of a sudden found plenty of time on their hands with lockdown and got back into the sport again. And this is a really good example of an affordable but good quality spring rifle. It is the Gamo Whisper Sting, and it retails for $149.99, so 150 quid. And you could probably, if you shop around, you could probably find it even a little bit cheaper than that, I'd imagine. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through the rifle from back to front, as we usually do. We'll zoom in on some of those key features. We'll go through the whole cocking process and the safety process, and then we'll end up on the range, see how it shoots in terms of accuracy and also in power. Now, 1,170 millimeters, the Gamo Whisper Sting is a full-size rifle. It really is. It weighs just under 3 kilograms, which makes it pretty light in actual fact, and that's without a scope, obviously. Now, there are some similarities between this rifle and obviously not only some rifles in the rest of the Gamo range, but also in the BSA range as well. For example, this shoulder pad is ventilated, quite firm, but it's very comfortable, and I saw the same shoulder pad on the BSA Meteor, which is no big surprise. And it is finished off with a black spacer come beading as well to set it off quite nicely. Now, the stock overall is very obviously black plastic. There's a tiny little bit of flex in the fore end here, where there's a slot obviously for the cocking linkage, but it's not excessively so. And if you give this rifle the shape test, there are no rattles and rolls, which is always a good thing, I think. Now, moving forward, and I should also say that this rifle is completely ambidextrous. On the butt here, you have a cheek piece for left-handers, and then you have a cheek piece on this side for right-handers, and there's a Gamo logo printed in on this side as well. And the comb up here is quite nice and high, very defined. It gives you good alignment down the rifle for aiming. Now, the wrist here is quite small. This will suit junior shooters as well as smaller shooters, and it's quite steeply raked. There are patches of quite subtle stippling moulded into the stock on the pistol grip and also on the forend as well to help you grip it. But the plastic or the polymer itself is actually quite grippy as well. Now, you don't get a scope with this rifle as standard, but you do get a set of dovetails for you to enable you to fit a scope. And on top at the back here, there's an arrestor plate, which is just like a little plate that's screwed into the top of the action. Now, the idea behind that is that when you put a scope on here, you put your rear mount right up against that plate, and that will then prevent any movement up and down the rifle from your scope as a result of recoil, which is quite a nice little feature. Now, the trigger guard and the trigger itself, I suspect they are the same as the trigger and trigger guard on the Meteor. Not that that's any bad thing at all. If you saw our video on the BSA Meteor Evo, you'll appreciate just how accurate that trigger can make a rifle. It is plastic. A lot of people get upset by that. To be perfectly honest, I didn't notice it making any significant difference. The blade itself is quite comfortable. It's very firm. There's no flimsiness. There's no sense that the trigger itself is flexing as you pull it back. Nothing like that. 2 stages as well, and the transfer between the first and second stage was quite abrupt, and then the second stage lets off nice and cleanly. And there's a hole underneath the trigger guard here for you to gain access to the adjustment up here. Now, the safety catch is a little blade forward of the trigger itself. You push it forward to make the rifle safe. to make the rifle live, and then you push it back to make the rifle safe. Now, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of safety catches within the trigger guard and near the trigger, especially when it kind of feels a little bit like a tiny trigger. But you know what, lots of manufacturers do it. It's very easily accessible, and it does a good job of locking up the trigger. Now then, although you don't get a scope with this rifle, you do get a set of very, very good open sights. And a lot of people, as I said before, are going to use this rifle as a beginner's rifle and maybe for shooting tin cans in the garden. And they're probably going to stick with open sights, at least to start with. And these are more than adequate for 10-15 yard plinking in the garden, more than adequate. There is adjustment for windage and elevation with these two dials up here. They turn with very precise clicks, gives you a sense that you're making very precise calculated adjustments, which I really like. And the notch back here is just a straightforward slot with a couple of green fibre optics for you to aim through. Then on the front you have a blade with a red fibre optic on top, which is covered in this sort of barrel sleeve, if you like, this hood up here. Now the barrel itself has I suppose you could call it a plastic shroud on it. It's fluted a little bit. I don't know whether that makes any significant difference in terms of sound suppression. It's got to help, I suppose. And then on the end you have this cocking aid cum silencer, which is sort of flared towards the end and a little bit ventilated as well. And yeah, sets the rifle off quite nicely. So I think that's everything on the rifle. What we do now is we'll zoom in on some of those features in close-up, then we'll go through the whole cocking and loading process before we end up on the range, put a few pellets through it, see how accurate it is and how powerful. So the cocking action for the Gamo Whisper Sting is exactly the same as any other conventional spring-powered break barrel, to be perfectly honest. There are no barrel catches or barrel levers that you have to operate in order to break the barrel. Now, one thing I would say is the safety catch does not come on automatically when you break this rifle. So as soon as you've cocked it and returned the barrel, the rifle is ready to fire. So best thing to do is just pop that safety catch on to start with. Now, as a right-hander, obviously it's the other way around if you're a left-hander, but as a right-hander, I find the best way to cock a spring-powered break barrel is to put the butt of the rifle into the top of my right thigh, take hold of the fore end with your right hand, and then just give the end of the barrel a light tap just to break the action at the breech here. Now, you can put a pellet in the breech at this point because the barrel isn't under that much tension. So you can put a spring in, a pellet in at this point, and then sweep the barrel down to cock the rifle, or you can cock the rifle by putting the barrel down. Now the cocking stroke is actually very light on this and very smooth. It's really good. I think youngsters will be able to deal with this. And then obviously that fully exposes the breech for you to put a pellet in. Now I would always recommend that when you're going through the whole loading process, you keep a hold of the barrel with your left hand when you're fiddling around up near the breech here, because the last thing you want to have happen is for that barrel to fly up unexpectedly and catch a finger. Now, as I said before, although the safety catch does not come on automatically, there is a mechanism inside here called an anti-bear trap that is designed to prevent the barrel leaping up if the sears inside let go. Now, if I take the safety catch off and pull the trigger, you can see that nothing is happening with that barrel. That's because of that anti-bear device. And then when you finish, just return the barrel, obviously, and you're ready to go once you've taken the safety catch off. Now, the breech is the weakest point on any break barrel, and any play or movement between the barrel and the action here at the breech will affect accuracy. Now the breech lock up on this seems really solid, so I should think that this will perform quite well down at the range, but we'll nip down there next and see how we get on. So I brought the Gamo Whisper Sting down to Reading Air Target Shooting Club to see how it shoots on the range. Now I set target out at 20 yards, which I think is a fair test for an affordable spring rifle. It's a .22 caliber rifle, and I'm using Air Arms 00 fill pellets as usual. So let's see how we get on. Last one, maybe 10 shots. It didn't look too bad. Let's go and have a closer look at the target. Well, yeah, that's not too bad at all, is it? That's 20 meters with Air Arms 0022 pellets, 5.52 size, and yeah, 10 shots in a pretty good group there. You couldn't really call it one hole, sort of more sort of one line, I think, but yeah, what, just a bit bigger than a fingernail, which for a budget Springer is very acceptable. Well, there you go. That's our review of the Gamo Whisper Sting. A really good example of a cheap, affordable, tough as old boots starter air rifle. Now, over the chronograph, it was putting out just over 10 foot-pounds, about 10.3 foot-pounds, I believe, and the consistency was pretty good as well. Now, that sort of power is more than capable of doing shorter range vermin control, pest control, and it's plenty accurate too, as you saw. Now, it's a really horrible day today. It's very windy, and I'm sure that in calm conditions, that group would have tightened up even more. Anyway, hope you found it useful. If you did, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing too. And if you'd like more information on this rifle and a whole bunch of other airgunning topics, head over to our website, which is alphamilitaria.com. Thanks for watching.